Are you new to card making? I've got 5 budget-friendly and super simple techniques to get your creative juices flowing. Let's get crafting. My first technique is a simple watercolored background. It doesn't get any easier than this. Any watercolors you have will work. You can even raid your kids' stash, which is always fun. I am using watercolor cardstock, but again, any card will do. The watercolor cardstock will hold more water, just depends on what you're looking for. I'm going to show you some options as well. To activate your watercolor, you do need to add water to the individual pot, stir it up, and then slap it on your cardstock. It's as simple as that. No fancy painting skills are needed here, just get the color on the card. If you're feeling like you really want to get fancy, let's do it with 2 colors. This time I'm going to use green and pink. Green and pink won't always make the best color combination, so just let your cardstock dry for a little while. If you're impatient, use a heat gun. Don't have a heat gun, use a hairdryer. Either way, let it dry. There is absolutely no wrong or right way when it comes to your art. Maybe you don't have watercolors. Let's make some. Pick a couple of colors of washable markers or Sharpie markers, put them onto a non-porous surface, add some water, dip your paintbrush in, and you've got watercolor. Let's get these guys made into cards. I have 2 dried card panels now, and I've brought out my artist tack and my embellishment box. So here I just keep all kinds of leftover things that I haven't used. I am selecting a thank you sentiment and a die cut after I finish fighting with it of a little piece of foliage. That's how I'm going to get this one done. When you're in a time crunch, having ready-made card bases and card panels in your desired size ready to go sure helps out with time. Now, I'm just going to use my Barely Art craft glue, which is what my liquid glue of choice, and I'm going to adhere it to my card panel. I pretty much stick to A2 size, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. To give my glue just a couple minutes to dry, I go ahead and slap an acrylic block on top. Now, if you don't have one, use another heavy object, a paperweight, a book, whatever you have. That acrylic block allows me to get started on the second card. Once I decide where I want to basically place my embellishments, I'm going to use artist tack. Now, you can certainly use glue, use what you've got. But let me tell you about artist tack. Artist tack is micro dots. And you separate these 2 sheets and you place your embellishment down and give it a good hard press to release the micro dots onto the back of your embellishment. Then you simply peel it off and stick it onto your card. It's really very quick, but it also keeps all of those little fussy pieces that you hate to put glue on. It allows that to happen really fast. Artist tack to the rescue for this embellishment as well. These 2 cards are done with that watercolor background. I finished the first one off with a simple Sharpie marker to create a border, and I cut out a rectangular frame for my second one. If you find this video helpful or enjoyable in any way, please give me some pixie dust by giving me a thumbs up, subscribing, and ringing that notification bell. The second technique is a simple 1 stamp background. I've selected a floral WOODWARE stamp, and I'm going to put that on an acrylic block along with some VERSAFINE pigment ink in black onyx. If you have a stamp that's on a wooden block, that works just as well. I selected this stamp because of the open space, but you can do this with a solid stamp as well. Be sure to occasionally stamp off of your paper. That's why I have another paper underneath. This is just a old piece of copy paper. But I want to create a random background here, but I want to fill up as much space as well. Now, if in your project you have decided to use a solid stamp, but you aren't getting the best image, I'm going to link the 7 tips for successful stamping video that I did a while back. Take a look at that and see if that doesn't help. In order to show you options, I made 2 of the same backgrounds. The first card I finished off with a sentiment, and the second card I finished off with the same sentiment, but I colored in the flowers. Super simple! My third easy technique is a stenciled background. Any stencil will work here. You can use multiple color inks, but in this case I'm keeping it super simple. I'm using a Distress Oxide ink in tumbled glass and a finger dauber. You can use blending brushes, you can use domed foam, whatever you have here will work. Any stencil will work. Don't have a stencil? Well, you can make a stencil. You can borrow a kid's alphabet stencil. Really, the sky's the limit here. I'm adhering my stencil to my cardstock and my work surface, which is a glass mat, with some painter's tape, creating a hinge so I'll be able to freely move my card underneath because the stencil is too small to cover the entire piece of cardstock. Line the pattern up and keep stenciling. I finished this one with the exact same sentiment, some sequins, and a frame. Let's call this one done. Number 4 couldn't be any easier. It's pattern paper and ephemera. I simply cut down a piece of pattern paper. I know you have some in your stash and you hate to cut into it, but use it. I cut mine down about 1/4 inch smaller on all sides from my card base. I'm going to adhere it with some liquid glue. The reason I like liquid glue here is because it gives me a little bit of wiggle room to make sure that my card is straight when I adhere to the base. I'm going to add a piece of ephemera, which in this case is a leaf, and the same sentiment I've been using throughout the entire video. If you are a Cricut user, making up sentiments ahead of time is a great time-saving technique. Go ahead and duplicate out the sentiment that you would most likely use. I think I got 20 sentiments out of this one, and I cut them all at one shot, and then I have a ton. I can stack them if I want to add dimension. I can leave them and create a background and just fussy cut them. Lots to do here, but the fact is I've got a bunch of sentiments for thank you cards that I'm going to make in the future, and I did it all in one sitting. Here I opted to use my Barely R Precision Craft Glue on my sentiment, and you can tell it's really fussy. That's why I really like my artist tack. But if you use the liquid glue, it does give you that little bit of wiggle room to make sure that everything is straight. And my 4th technique is complete. But I just had a brilliant idea, and I'm going to actually create a bonus card. So hang out until the end and I'll share that with you as well. This 5th technique I'm going to change up just a little bit. My card panel. I'm going to start with a smaller card panel, so I'm going to cut it down to 3 3/4 by 5. This 5th technique is a washi tape background. I've selected 2 different washi tapes in 2 different widths. Doesn't matter what you have, you can use anything you have, but for this card, I've chosen a very thin one and a thicker one. I think the thicker one's probably about a 1/2 inch and the thinner one's about a 1/4 inch. The thick one is a dark blue floral, and I am offsetting that with a white kind of leopard silver print. Wow. I'm going with diagonal stripes here, and there's a really good reason why. If you use vertical stripes, you can see the imperfections in the card. If you go with diagonal stripes, you're less likely to notice. A really great tip when it comes to washi tape, it is not terribly adhesive. So I highly suggest that once you finish doing your stripes, you flip your card over and go ahead and wrap that washi tape around to the back and adhere it. This 5th card is finished with a stamped happy birthday and a butterfly die cut. We've made it to the end. 5 super simple and budget-friendly techniques that you can bring to your card making. So let's do a little review. How about our number 1, a watercolor background? This was really easy and quick. Number 2, a 1 stamp background. Just repeat the stamp over and over. Don't forget to stamp off the edge. Number 3, a stenciled background. Number 4, couldn't get any simpler than this. Pattern paper and ephemera. And number 5, a washi tape background. So, if you hung around this long, I promised you a bonus. And here it is. I had so many sentiments left over that I popped one up on foam tape and used the other sentiments to decorate the background. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you real soon.